We're back with Tanisha Sullivan, president of the Boston branch of the NAACP.
And joining us now is Enrique Zuniga, executive director of the Massachusetts Peace Officers Standards and Training, or POST Commission. Since the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests over the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, there have been calls for police reform. There is legislation pending before the U.S. Congress, while here in Massachusetts, Governor Baker signed a series of reforms into law. The 2020 Massachusetts Police Reform Law limits the situations where police officers can use physical force. It limits the use of no-knock warrants and created the POST Commission itself, which, Enrique, you lead. Explain a little bit about the role of the commission, if you will, and the progress you have made to date.
Thank you. The POST Commission was charged with a holistic approach towards improving policing and enhancing trust in public safety. The approach starts with training. There's basic standard training that everybody has to go through. There's ongoing in-service training where a lot of the current best practices are taught. There's a method of certification, or a 3-year mandatory certification process that means we will be looking at the behavior and compliance of every officer. And there's also a disciplinary process to limit, condition, suspend, or in some cases revoke the certification of an individual who engages in misconduct or prohibited conduct.
Sometimes we've heard some pushback from law enforcement about the POST Commission. What do you say about their concerns about how the organization's running?
Well, it's the law. We're here to implement it. I may understand if some may think that that wasn't necessary. There's a lot of investigations that happen at the police department level. But I think it's important for, as I mentioned, public confidence in policing and enhancing policing to have a central organization like us that is going to also make public a number of records, take investigations where an agency is not able to handle them, for example, and again, enhance trust in policing.
Let me ask Tanisha, are these reforms enough? Can the POST Commission really help ensure that police who are decertified don't just move on to work somewhere else?
Yes, we were very pleased in 2020, 2021 when Governor Baker actually initially introduced the POST Commission, the bill that ultimately became law, because it did, for the very first time, put in place the structure necessary to really help professionalize law enforcement. It said, look, we appreciate the work you do, and our expectation is that, that you'll be licensed, that you'll be trained, and that you'll be held to a very high standard in a professional capacity. It does have the potential, therefore, to help usher in some change. However, it is not enough. Because what we need to really make sure we're focusing on is shifting the culture that is embedded in, rooted in American law enforcement. That will help us to hopefully eradicate, eliminate the really unjustified deaths that we're seeing, as in the death of Tyre Nichols.
And that leads right into your question.
And speaking about the culture, as much has been said about diversifying police departments to look like the communities that they serve. But in Memphis, 58% of the city's 2,000 police officers are Black, and they police a majority Black city. So what does that tell us about diversification? Just because you change the color doesn't necessarily mean you change the culture.
That's right. That's right. Look, I think what we're seeing here, unfortunately, is yet another piece of evidence that speaks to the experience of Black people and other people of color all too often with law enforcement. It's not about the race or ethnicity of the police officer. It really is about the victim. And so it is important that we lean in deeply when it comes to culture shift, really looking for opportunities to help ensure that civilians, when they come into contact with law enforcement, that their humanity is seen. That's what's missing right now. So for so long, we've talked about this as a civil rights crisis, a racial justice crisis, a law enforcement crisis. I believe we've now gotten to the point where it is a humanitarian crisis, and culture shift is what's needed, alongside putting in place the structures for accountability.
You know, we heard from a lot of Massachusetts police chiefs. They issued forceful statements condemning the actions in Memphis in recent days. But as we mentioned earlier, both the Boston Police Department and the Mass Chiefs of Police Association declined to make anyone available to participate in tonight's conversation. So while they aren't here tonight, we suspect that they would point out, as they often do, rightly so, that the majority of police officers go to work every day, they act professionally, they act responsibly, and are outraged when they see this kind of behavior. Enrique, how do you respond to that? Is that a fair argument?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important to, when an event like this happens, and it's a horrific criminal, what happened there, as evidenced by the video, that we don't paint with a broad brush. We should not dismiss this as an incident, as a isolated incident. There's too many similarities with similar incidents. But the public should not assume that every other officer is even capable of something like this.
We only have about 30 seconds. Quick response to that. Do you agree that most officers are doing their job responsibly and well?
Yes, absolutely. And I do believe that most are, but it's critically important that we root out those who are not. Because otherwise we end up with fatal incidents or other interactions that may not be fatal but are just as tragic.
And that's what the Post Commission is designed to help to do.
That's what
right,
we're doing. That's what we're doing.
All right, coming up, we're going to be joined by the Reverend Willie Bodrick, and we're going to ask what reforms will move us forward as a community.